Donald Trump is now demolishing parts of the White House. Remember, money cannot buy class. And if there is any greater reminder that money can't buy class, it's Donald Trump, his family, and the Trump administration. It is harder to think of a motto more suited to Trump than money cannot buy class. Now, this is all happening to build Donald Trump's now infamous ballroom. It costs $250 million. The demolition of the East Wing has begun. Trump said not a long time ago that none of this was going to interfere with any of the current buildings. Remember when Trump said this just a couple of months ago?
It won't interfere with the current building. It'll be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to the existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of. It's my favorite place. I love it.
Well, it seems that has not come true. I know this may come as a shock to many of you, but Donald Trump lied again. Now, you might be saying, are $250 million in taxpayer money going to this ballroom? Trump says no. Trump says that the project was funded by, quote, many generous patriots. In other words, it's funded by bribes. They know this looks bad. How do we know that? Because the White House has issued a demand that the construction not be photographed or published. They said, quote, as construction proceeds on the White House grounds, employees should refrain from taking and sharing photographs of the grounds to include the East Wing without prior approval from the Office of Public Affairs. That's what they sent. That was sent by Treasury officials and reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. So the official reason is these pictures that we are looking at, for example, like this picture right here of the White House being demolished, that could potentially reveal sensitive items like security features or confidential structural details. Now, the more realistic explanation seems to be they don't want images of the White House being destroyed under Donald Trump. Normally, a project like this would have a historic preservation review. It would involve multiple agencies. What's the right way to do it? Does it even make sense? Engineering would be involved. None of that happened. The process did not happen. They bypassed the standard review, in large part because some of those key oversight positions aren't even filled by the Trump administration. They're just open positions. I hate to go in this direction, okay? But I've received emails from many of you saying, David, if Trump was planning to move out in January of 2029, he wouldn't be doing this. You know, if you're about to move out of your apartment, you don't repaint the whole thing and get brand new appliances. If Trump were planning to leave the White House in January of 2029, according to many of you, he would not be doing this. And you know what? Maybe there is something to that. But you also have to remember, Trump is an egomaniacal narcissist, increasingly obsessed with his legacy. For Trump, part of legacy is leaving a lasting imprint that is difficult to undo. If you cut funding for Obamacare subsidies, the next president can relatively easily reverse that. Demolishing parts of the White House and spending $250 million to build new structures, much harder to undo. And I believe that this really goes primarily to Donald Trump's ego. And then it gets to, even if Donald Trump does plan to leave the White House in January of 2029, which I believe he does and will, he could still be incentivized to do this with the idea that maybe he is going to make J.D. Vance the heir apparent to MAGA-ism. And so it'll be there for J.D. Vance. Or maybe it's going to be President Donald Trump Jr., if you can imagine such a vomitous idea. And so maybe it's being done. Nice little ballroom I built for Donald Trump Jr., right? So my question to you, do you believe that the underlying reason Trump is doing this is because he doesn't plan to leave? Do you believe that the underlying reason is because Trump is trying to do legacy stuff that would be harder to reverse than policy, or something else? Let me know in the comment. Send me an email, info@davidpakman.com. Sometimes the best snacks are the ones that have been around for a long time. You don't have to reinvent the wheel to get a great snack. And that is what our sponsor Masa is aiming for. with their delicious tortilla chips that are made the traditional way. You know I love this stuff, okay? Masa makes their chips with 3 ingredients: organic nixtamalized corn, Redmond real sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. The chip is sturdy. I don't want a weak chip that crumbles when I try to dip into the guacamole. I need a sturdy chip, and that is exactly what Masa's tortilla chips do. They also are using non-industrial oils, which pushes the industry away from some of this unsustainable monocropping. If you are ready to try the most delicious tortilla chips you've ever had, which are sustainably produced, go to masachips.com/Pakman and use the code Pakman for 25% off your first order. The link is in the description.